We have Justin Whittle with us today. He is the founder of Switchback Physiotherapy. They are based in Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and he himself is also a physiotherapist. And he has graciously agreed to be on the show today. So, um, Justin, I'm going to let you just introduce, kind of tell us a little bit about your background and tell us about Switchback.
Hi, Jody. Thanks for having me. This is great to connect with you as always. So as Jody said, my name is Justin Whittle. I am a physiotherapist. I graduated from Dalhousie in Halifax back in 2003. So I've got a few years under my belt now, certainly. And I live in I guess, sort of a semi-rural area in Western Newfoundland. The name of the city is Corner Brook. The population of the city is about 20,000, and the immediate surrounding area, uh, feel free to fact check me. I feel like it's around 40,000 people. It is the sort of the service center for the western region of Newfoundland and Labrador. So, the biggest hospital is here and various government services are here. So even though it's sort of a relatively small area, with the major services for the region being in the nearby, maybe it feels a little bigger than it actually is.
Mm.
Um, I am from Eastern Newfoundland originally, St. John's, which is the capital of Newfoundland and Labrador, and the biggest center geographically, population of 300,000, sort of in that region, I suppose, and certainly the center of business and government, and the biggest center of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I was drawn to the West Coast quite a few years ago now for my love of the outdoors, to be quite honest with you. The first love was downhill skiing. I'm a big skier, so our local hill here is called Marble Mountain. So I was really drawn to that. Managed to start spending a little more time out here. Met my partner, now wife, and we have a couple of kids, and the rest is history, as they say. And living here is sort of all about the outdoor lifestyle for me. And the four seasons, we're busy outdoors as much as possible, skiing and mountain biking and road cycling, and then dabbling in the other outdoor activities at our fingertips, from anything from a little bit of sea kayaking to sailing, and just try to live that lifestyle as much as possible. Having spent a lot of time in BC prior to living in Corner Brook in Western Newfoundland, when I did start spending time here, I thought, oh wow, I can have a lot of what I've experienced in British Columbia, smaller scale, but right here in Western Newfoundland. So that's how I landed here. And I used to be involved in a business that I started on the East Coast, and it turned out to be more of a chain style of business. I think when I made an exit, I think we had about 15 locations. A couple were even out of the province.
Wow.
I very much was not working as a full-time physio anymore. It was more of a business hat that I was wearing, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And then eventually it was time to make a change, and I made an exit, and that all went well. I took a little bit of time off for myself. Like I said, we had young kids who are just almost 7 and almost 3, so kind of spent some family time, if you will. And then I decided to open Switchback, is what it came down to. And what I noticed in the region, what I sort of felt, is that I could probably have a clinic that really kind of catered to that outdoor sort of oriented individual, athlete, clients, adults, whatever, people that are doing outdoor stuff, and I could cater to that. And I was sort of participating in these communities anyway, again, from Nordic skiing and downhill skiing, road cycling, mountain biking, and then all those user groups, they're all doing a little bit of kayaking, a little bit of hiking, a little bit of camping, what have you. So
Mhm.
I built Switchback with all of these outdoor pursuits in Western Newfoundland in mind, and it just went from there, basically. Does that paint a picture?
I think that paints a great picture. So correct me if I'm wrong, but Corner Brook was really like a lifestyle, like the outdoor lifestyle is what pulled you to Corner Brook. And now you've created this clinic that actually serves all of these different outdoor athletes, everyday outdoor athletes. What do you want to call them? Recreational
Abs-
athletes. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
So
absolutely.
I'm curious, Justin, what what made you switch from going from like 15 clinics to developing this very niche and very like personal clinic that Switchback is?
In the original business back in 2004, just a year after I had graduated from university. And as you grow as a person more than anything, including as a professional, but as a person, like, your values and change over the course of a lifetime. And certainly for me, once I got out in the work world after university and started a business, eventually the business got to a point where I could sustain a lifestyle that I enjoyed, and most of that enjoyment, to be quite honest with you, was spending my money and whatever holiday time I could stitch together and just go to British Columbia and go skiing. And that is the truth. I don't know how many times I would just fly out to Calgary and on into Golden, where I have friends and family, and we would go skiing. And so then we're growing this business at the same time, and everyone's got their hobbies or their enjoyments outside of work. For me, it was very much about outdoors, so lots of skiing in the wintertime. And then in the summertime on the East Coast, it was a lot of sailing is what I ended up doing. And but then eventually, once I started spending more time on the west coast of the province, and the business afforded me the ability to do that, both in time and financially,
Mhm.
I realized that this is kind of where I needed to be in Western Newfoundland. And then what starts to happen is, what do you value? What's most important to you in life? And for me, what was most important was sort of my lifestyle and where I lived and how I lived my life, not business per se. Not that I wasn't interested in it. That's definitely not the case. That was exciting in its own way, but it was a it was at a point where those two things were sort of competing with each other,
Mhm.
and it became sort of an inflection point of making a decision about, okay, which direction are you going to go here? It seems like you can't have both worlds, for lots of different reasons. So I chose that the best place for me to be was here in Western Newfoundland, leading that lifestyle. And I've never been happier, to be quite honest with you, is the bottom
Amazing.
line. And everybody's definition of happiness is individually defined. But for me, the people that I got to interact with and hang out with, and the activities I got to do here just brought joy and happiness to my life overall. Whereas, being in the city was less joy and less happiness in comparison. And not that I didn't have good experiences there. That was actually my home area where I'm from. So yeah, it was a big move at one point and a big shift. But I mean, it's more than a decade ago now as well. So I've certainly adopted this area as my home area. And
Yeah.
my kids are growing up here, and we ski on Friday afternoons. Like this, they're so lucky, and I feel pretty lucky to be able to do that with them so far, at least.
Yeah. What have been some of the primary challenges for you building a more like a standalone clinic in a small center?
I think there'd be different challenges depending on what stage of a career you might ask that question, honestly.
Mm,
So I think for me, I had spent the challenges were, I think the challenge for this was a heck of a lot lower than what it was when I started way back in the very beginning with the very first clinic.
oh,
I had a
interesting.
lot of I read an article, I can't remember where it was. It was reputable, whatever it was, and it was just a general business article. And it talked about like failure of business. There's some percentage of businesses that don't make it through the first year and the first
Mm,
5 years. Healthcare is a little different than that. I do believe that. I don't know an exact stat, but another thing that this article said, that when people start businesses at a later point in their life, I want to say in their 40s, because that's where am certainly. Those businesses tend to stand the test of time more so when they're started by someone a lot younger, earlier in the life. The statistics change a little bit. So from a challenge perspective, I felt really comfortable and confident about what I was doing, having gone through those iterations of clinics and clinics and clinics over all my years, probably about 20 clinics in 16 or 18 years or whatever it was at that point.
Yeah.
I kind of knew the life cycle of a clinic, how to get it up and running. And we had open clinics in rural areas in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I
Mhm.
sort of knew what that looked like. And I took all that sort of all that experience and I ended up bundling it into Switchback. So it was it's an educated risk is what it comes down to. Every business is a risk, of course. There's always risk, I suppose. Um, so the challenges of setting up the business were low in the sense that I felt that my experience just gave me the confidence to sort of forge ahead. Going niche, that's interesting. I think
Mhm.
there was a point in my life. You helped me with that, and we can go there in a moment, but I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But sometimes you need outside professionals like yourself to help sort of tease it out, and you were a great help with that. But something I certainly learned through my years of business in that chain type business, I suppose, um, and not just in healthcare, but generally, it seemed like businesses that were very general, they would easily get lost in the sea of competition and just business that's out there when people are trying to choose why
Right.
they would go to any business, a service-based business or a product-based business. If they try to cater and do everything, they don't stand out at all. And it seemed like niche type businesses, they were the ones that actually stood out. So I know I think I had a few questions from some people sort of on that note, and I said, no, this is my direction, and I feel pretty good about it. And honestly, it's worked out in spades to date, and we've made a good name for ourselves in those spaces. And I think about my past, business life, and nobody shared anything on your social. Nobody tagged you. Like it didn't
Mhm.
exist.
Mhm.
And now, like, it's certainly on a weekly basis, almost depending on the week, it can almost be daily.
Yeah.
We're getting tagged on social posts, and people are sharing stuff about Switchback, and
Awesome.
it's really cool, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so I used to joke that like I'm trying to take physiotherapy, like it's kind of like a 0 out of 10 for the cool factor. I'm like, I'm just trying to get it to a 4, right? And I think I'm getting there. I think I'm gonna get it to a 4. And then
Cool.
yeah, so it's yeah, I can remember just first seeing people like tag it, and I thought, oh my God. And I think about the thousands of thousands of dollars in the past that I spent on like marketing firms
Mhm.
and all that stuff, and there was no uptake like there is with this.
Like the
And
engagement wasn't the same.
no,
Wow.
unbelievable. Yeah,
Huh.
it's remarkable.
Yeah.
And I wish I had a better handle on why that is exactly. Like how do you know, all I can go on is my experience. I think my experience is pretty good for the space that I'm in, but we're not a Starbucks. We're not this massive business with business analysts or anything like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
How do how do you go from the point, how do two I always use the restaurant example. So all of a sudden you've got this restaurant that looks amazing, maybe even has really great food and service, and they're out of business in no time. And then there's this sort of greasy spoon kind of place, and it's kind of down an alley, and it's a bit dingy or something, and it's a bit hard to find. And like they've got the best food ever, and they've been in business for 37 years. I don't know, something silly like that.
Yeah.
I still to this day I don't know like why does something catch for
Mm.
some businesses and why do things not catch for other businesses? I don't know. But this
Right.
sharing of social, like for me is kind of mind blowing. I've never
Mhm.
experienced that. But I'm also really involved in the community. I come back to that sometimes as
Mhm.
well. I'm super involved with the groups. When I was in that larger business, I wasn't involved with anybody.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, like there's a real soul here now, whereas before, we had great people, everybody meant well, but there was no theme. It was just general. You were in all these places. It was, there was no definition. What did you do? Oh, we do everything. And busy doing everything too. Like there was a point where that business was very successful, continues on to this day. I presume they're doing okay, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't, but the soul is kind of, I don't know. It
Well,
was,
that was going to be my question, Justin, was like, what have you done to build your brand? Because I feel like you're talking about that. Is like, what have you done to build this brand, um, and that reputation in the community? And I think you're touching on it as you're involved in your community. So
yeah.
can you speak just a bit more into like, how did you build your brand? How did you get involved in your community?
So it was, I guess it was community first, honestly. So I'm involved with these different sort of outdoor oriented groups, that I've already mentioned, obviously. And I was on a bike ride this morning, and we did 65K this morning. Halfway through, we stopped and we had coffee and a snack, and we're on our way again. And we were riding, and I kind of took stock, and I thought, oh my God, I've seen every one of these people like at work.
Wow.
But they're also my friend group and my peer group as well. So, closer with some than others, and trying to not blur professional lines sometimes. That's probably that would be an interesting point on the rural side, I
Rural.
think, is that the lines are very blurred, and you're constantly in contact with people professionally, inside the walls, confidentiality, all those pieces, which I take very, very seriously.
Mhm.
Um, but I will literally see people in the clinic during the day and then be with them the same day out doing an activity, depending on the season and all those things. And so it's probably really pushed me to be a better professional as well, probably. I like to think that I've never ever not been a professional and not did my best. Whatever my best was is the bottom line.
Mhm.
I'm not the best, but I try to do my best.
Mhm.
And so that I guess that's a bit of a challenge, but having done this for many years, I was kind of ready for that as well. As professionals, we tell stories about what happened in our day, and we keep it confidential, and we say, in my case, oh, I saw someone today who does this sport and they had this injury, and then
Mhm.
that's it. And in the city, could be anybody, but here in a rural area, geez, I know a guy who does that sport, or a gal who does that sport and hurt their knee the other day. Like I know exactly who he's talking about.
Right.
So I've really had to change my stories a little bit. Like
Mhm.
I haven't broken confidentiality. Nothing bad has happened, but I thought,
Mhm.
oh, wait a minute. You don't need a lot of details in a small area to figure some things out. So
Right.
that's been an interesting sort of little challenge, I suppose, always
Yeah.
to be thinking about that. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
involved with these groups, all these people on the ride this morning, and I'm really passionate about these activities. Somebody said to me along the way, they said, "Oh, so you're really all about the athletes?" And I said, "Well, no, I'm really all about the activities, actually. And if I get a teenage athlete in one of the sports that I'm passionate about, and they've got an upcoming competition, or they're in line to go to a national meet or something, which is really cool, that's amazing. I love working with them. But if I get somebody who is not on a competitive stage, but they hurt their knee on Wednesday, and by golly, they want to go skiing on Saturday, I'm working just as hard for them, and I'm just excited to see them at the ski hill or at the Nordic facility, and throw them a high five when you see them go around the loop or come down the run, or whatever it is. So yeah, it's all about the activities. And I guess, this word authenticity, that's another podcast, isn't it? I
It
know.
is.
But I'm just living, I'm literally living my community life, my professional life, blurred together,
Mm.
but I've got a good understanding of how to keep them professionally and confidentially separated as required.
Yeah,
And so far, so
so
good.
far so
Ask me in
good.
5 years if I've kept that going.
Well, what do you think that has done for your business? Like being able to engage with those communities, stay professional. Um, what has that done? What has that done for Switchback?
It's been a reputation builder, I think, is what it comes down
Mm,
to. It's yeah, people know people in that outdoor space. They just know to like just go see Justin or just go to Switchback. And there's always that fine line as well with business that something I'm probably doing that I absolutely didn't do before. I could probably be a little better at it. I was better at it in the beginning and I kind of fell away from it. I need to go back to it. Is I always push sort of the brand first and not myself at all. I'm
okay.
probably a bit more of a hybrid of that now. I think the brand needs to have its own life, but I kind of need to get in front of the camera myself and speak to it sometimes. That's one
Mhm.
thing I've learned, and I admire people who do that, honestly, and I don't do it enough. And I admire people who just they just put their camera in selfie mode and they talk about something in a professional way,
Yeah.
but obviously there's no professional camera work, but they're doing the best they can. The message is professional, they're
Mhm.
acting professional. No, the media itself, they're in selfie mode, but they're giving a good conversation about something or a point about something. I
Mhm.
feel like I could do that more often than I do. In the early days, I did a little more, got a little busier and had a little less time to do it. I think I should probably have a bit of a set strategy that I do that a little bit more
Yeah.
because the people know me in the community, trying to do the brand and the person. Yeah, people who do the person, the face of the brand, I think that's pretty important. And I think I've done an okay job with it.
Yeah.
But people know me in the community, so it's kind of happening naturally without having to get in front of the camera.
Right. I mean,
Does that make sense?
if you're at a bike ride, there's no reason I need to go watch you on social media and a camera
Yeah,
if I also have chatted with
absolutely.
you at my morning bike
Yep.
ride, right? Like
Yep.
your in-person presence. Um,
Yeah, I
it's
make myself too accessible to people. Like if people send me a message on Instagram, and I saw them yesterday in the clinic, that's cool. I don't
of
mind that.
course, yeah.
I'll answer their question is the bottom line, or
Hmm.
um, yeah, things of that nature. People end up getting my email address, whereas before it was this sort of business idea that you only interact with people when they come into the clinic and those things. I certainly don't do that. I don't think I'll ever have that mindset again, whether
Mm.
I'm in Corner Brook or Toronto or anywhere in the world. Like you
And
need to
that's a
be
different
accessible.
mindset. You said like that sounds like it was a different mindset from when you were
Yep.
chained to when you're
Absolutely.
boutique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and that whole era of the chain, that was also a building era when everything was so new all the time. We knew nothing about business and so I was able to fold all that experience. Again, my experience only, not saying it's the best experience, but it was my experience. And folding it into Switchback is what it comes down to. So yeah, from those experiences, I've learned kind of what I want to be.
Yeah.
And, and not everybody wants to be the same thing, obviously. Some people do like all the anonymity and they don't want any contact outside of the workspace. I don't feel that
Right.
way.
Yeah. It's way more personal that way.
Yeah.
The way that you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, really, we only have time for one more question. And I'm really trying to decide what our final question is going to be here. I would love to go into actually how you've built your team because you do have team members with you. So maybe that's the last kind of piece of today's interview is you've built this brand. There's this personal part of you being in the community, but how are you developing your team culture? How important is company culture for yourself and for the team that you're building?
To be surrounded by people that you largely enjoy working with and are happy to be around is really, really important. This is definitely a challenge it was always a challenge in healthcare to get people, period.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's an additional challenge to get good people who you're happy to have on board.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go more rural, all of those things, you can double down on the challenges of that. And what I've seen so far are the people that are here with me now. It's a little bit of a mixture of new people to me and people that I had contact with in the past. And as people are figuring out what we're doing over here, they want to be a part of it and they're reaching out. And that's been the greater piece, is people figure out what we're doing here and they reach out and they're like, how do I get involved with what you're doing, right?
Wow.
But there's
How are
not
people figuring that out? Do you know?
um
How are
it's
they
it would
finding it?
it would just be, it would be reputation through the community and social media. That would be
Okay.
it,
Okay.
basically, right?
Yeah.
Reputation in the community and social media. People have just figured out it's a cool place to be, is what it comes down to. And I'm only entertaining working with people who kind of bring something good to the clinic space, is what it comes down to. And everybody here is kind of involved in sort of the outdoors and health and fitness, and we're not the same people, but we've got a lot of common ground, and that's what's working. um when there's certain roles that I need filled, if I can't fill them, I can't fill them. If somebody presents who's not a fit for the team, I won't fill the role.
Mm,
I'll just let it happen over the course of time. And, 1 year ago to this day, I was the only person in the clinic who was seeing clients and generating revenue. And now there are one, two, three, four, there's five of us now that are
awesome.
seeing people and generating revenue. So I'm just going to let that build naturally, so good people are coming on board. And for the most part, everybody does have this sort of outdoor or certainly athletic fitness oriented sort
Mm,
of side. But everybody here, mountain bikes, or trail runs, or yeah, we're
doing the
all
things.
there's a lot of cut from the common cloth happening around here.
Yeah.
And I hope to attract people in time. And part of it is about having the net open to catch the right people when they show up. Um, a couple moves to town, or a spouse moves into the area, and then the other person in that partnership is an appropriate fit for here. Like I'd love to round out with a chiropractor. I'd like to have another physio eventually, but until those people present themselves, we'll keep going as we are, and we're doing fine at the same time. So that'll be a challenge, getting really staffed up.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely much pickier than I ever was in my whole life. I've been there. I filled the seats on the bus because that's what I was supposed to do. I'm Yeah, forget it. I'm not doing that again. I'll
Okay, well
double
that
down on myself. I'll answer the phone. It doesn't matter. I've got amazing people here. I'm really lucky.
yeah.
Yeah,
So people
super
are
lucky.
important and you
Yeah,
gotta like them. They
yeah,
gotta like them, they've got to be a good fit.
yeah. And
Yeah.
they have to like the place as well. Like, I think about one person,
Like
and
Corner Brook itself or the clinic itself.
well, both, I
Okay.
suppose. Yeah, I think about one person. They lived here in Corner. I've never met this person ever. They reached out through social media. Maybe we exchanged some emails. And one of the first things I said to them is like, you need to come in and see the place and meet me. Like, this is a two-way interview, if you will. Like, you need to decide that this is a fit for you. Even if I want you really bad, this needs to be good for you at the same time. I don't want people who don't want to be here. I don't, we don't need each other.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, that's a delicate balance. And people are just like looking for a job, and it's, well, yes, a job is important. Yes, income, it's really important, but there's got to be more to it than that, is the bottom line. And
Mm.
that's what's happening here, is that we kind of we kind of all live sort of a lifestyle. And everyone comes back to work on a Monday morning, and it's like, I ran
Stories to
39
tell.
kilometers up a mountain on Saturday. Oh, I biked 100K. And it's like, it's amazing.
Awesome.
Right? It's probably a high bar.
You say that's a high bar, staff hiring bar. Can you
But
run 40K?
right. So yeah, anyway, we have one of our massage therapists here is an ultra runner, and
Yeah.
she's off the hook. Like,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's insane. And
That is
I'm like,
insane.
oh, I didn't do that. I made chocolate chip pancakes for the kids.
Balance. It's all about balance. Well, that was a great spot to end this, Justin.